Okay, can we have a bit of light on people? Because that's great. It's good just to know that everyone didn't disappear out when they heard I was coming up to speak. Okay, well, let me start by reading some verses from the Bible, from the book of Isaiah, chapter 9. And Isaiah, who wrote this book, lived 700 years before Jesus was born, but he brought these words prophetically from God, and they foretold of a time when Jesus, God's Son, would come into this world, and they spoke of the impact he would have on the world and on people's lives when he came. So Isaiah chapter 9, we're just going to read a couple of verses, verse 2 and verse 6, which says, "The people walking in darkness have seen a great light. On those living in deep darkness," some translations say in the shadow of death, "a light has dawned. For to us a child is born, to us a son is given, and the government will be on his shoulders, and he'll be called Wonderful Counselor, Mighty God, Everlasting Father, Prince of Peace." I don't know if you've ever tried to make a journey in darkness, especially a journey where you don't really know where you're going. In 1985, Linda, my wife, and I went on our first ever foreign holiday together with Hannah, our daughter, who was 15 months old at the time. We arrived in Ibiza at 10 o'clock at night on a November evening. It was dark and we arrived in the middle of a storm. We picked up our rental car, which was a Renault with an annoying umbrella gear stick, and we attempted to make our way across to the other side of the island to an apartment some friends had agreed to rent out to us. 90% of that journey was in complete darkness. There were no street lamps, there were no other cars, and in those days, of course, there were no sat-navs either. I was reading a map written on a sheet of paper that our friend had drawn for us. And as the storm lashed down on us and I struggled to find my way, I just kept saying to Linda, I really, really wish we'd made this journey in the light during the daytime. Of course, after about an hour, we were totally lost, and I stopped at a bar that was in the middle of nowhere to try and get some help with directions. And as I got out and started to walk towards the bar, Linda, who was wedged in the back seat of the car between two suitcases holding our daughter Hannah, started shouting and screaming at me. At which point I turned round to see the car rolling backwards down a very, very steep hill. So I ran to the car. I tried the driver's door, but unfortunately it had a locking mechanism whereby when I got out and shut the door, it was locked. By now, the car was really picking up speed, so I went to the back of the car. I used my feet and weight to stop the car, but it rolled straight over my feet and pushed me aside what was only about 10 stone of me at the time. Can you believe that? Linda's screams were getting louder. The car was going faster and faster, and just as I thought to myself, oh no, I've started our first foreign holiday by killing my wife and daughter, the cars came to a sudden and abrupt halt. As Linda from the back seat leaned forward, not having a clue what she was doing, and grabbed the only thing she could reach, which happened to be that umbrella gear stick, which was at dashboard height. And unbeknown to her, she pulled the car into gear, which was why it came to a sudden and complete stop. It wasn't a great start to what was meant to be a restful, relaxing week. And the stress then continued when we arrived at the apartment and spent the first 20 minutes crawling around, again in darkness, trying to find and fix the fuses which had blown in the apartment. By the time we finally found ourselves in the light, knowing where we were and starting to find a sense of peace, it was 1:30 in the morning, at which point we made a vow that we would never, ever again embark on a foreign excursion where we didn't know where we were going and arrive in the dark. Whatever flights we booked, they were always going to arrive in the middle of the day from that point onwards. How much easier that journey would have been if we'd made it during the daytime, if we'd made it in the light. If you were to be asked to sum up what Christians celebrate at Christmas in one short sentence, these verses we read from Isaiah 9 would be a perfect way of doing that. It's the time we celebrate a great light dawning on a land and a people who are living in deep darkness. The time of year when we celebrate God giving us the opportunity to switch the nature of our journey from a journey by night to a journey by day. So what does all that mean? I mean, what does journeying in darkness look like? And why would we want to change how we're journeying through life anyway? Well, in many ways, the journey we've been on over the last couple of years during this pandemic illustrates what it's like to journey in a measure of darkness. I'm sure for many of us over the last couple of years, there have been many instances when our sense of hope has been knocked back. I mean, how many times has hope been on the horizon in terms of coming through this pandemic, only to be dashed by some more news, some more science, some more statistics, a government briefing, or a new variant? And it's not just hope that gets impacted. There's also been a huge amount of uncertainty and insecurity for people over their jobs, over their businesses, uncertainties within families, over family get-togethers. And for the second year in a row, of course, there's some uncertainty even over this coming Christmas. And we have also found ourselves over the last 2 years living with a sense of brokenness. Brokenness that's affected the economy, education, care homes, the health service, social services, the government, central government and local level government. There's always been a sense of some brokenness in all of those areas, but these days, are we not living with it at a bit of a new level? And that brokenness has affected people's personal well-being as record numbers of people, young and old alike, experience impact on their mental and emotional health and well-being. There are countless situations and countless numbers of lives that are impacted by loss of hope, uncertainty, insecurity, fears and brokenness. And of course, these things haven't suddenly appeared through the pandemic. Hopelessness, fears, uncertainties, brokenness are simply a feature and a fact of life. Sometimes those things are external and caused by things beyond our control. Sometimes they're internal as a result of bad decisions and choices that we make personally. Whatever the cause, some people experience those things in a very profound way and others may experience them in a much less severe way, but in some way, shape or form, they're a feature of life for us all. Now, if hopelessness, uncertainty, insecurities, fears, brokenness, and the damage that results from all of those things are the darkness that mankind is always in some measure living and journeying in, then I want to suggest to you the last couple of years has turned the dimmer switch a tad darker for us all. Of course, the ultimate expression of darkness, or the shadow of darkness that hangs over us all, is death itself. And the ultimate goal of the vaccination program, of course, is, and all the restrictions are to avoid deaths. And whatever way we look at that darkness has come nearer to us through this pandemic, if not directly through the virus, then it certainly does when you look at all the diagnosis and treatment delays relating with cancer and other health conditions. But the message of Christmas is simple. And it's this, that God doesn't want us to journey in the dark. It's that a great light can dawn for everyone that's living in some way, shape or form in a measure of darkness. We can change. The good news of Christmas is we can change the nature of our journey from a nighttime journey to a daytime journey. The good news of Christmas is we can experience a journey within which darkness gives way to light, a journey within which hope displaces hopelessness, within which confidence and certainty displace insecurity, uncertainty and fear, and healing and wholeness displaces brokenness. And of course, where ultimately a promise from God of eternal, everlasting life displaces the inherent fear of death that we all live under the shadow of. That's the hope of Christmas. That's the promise of Christmas. And that's the potential of Christmas. The nature of your journey can change from trying to get to the other side in the dark, in the rain, with a sketched map on a piece of paper, to a journey in which you can see and know with confidence and clarity where you're going and how to get there. If you journey with God, you won't need to stop at the bar in the middle of the night, in the middle of nowhere, to ask for directions with all the consequential drama that brings. And you won't be crawling around in the dark looking for the fuse box to fix things. So how's that possible? What makes it possible for night driving to be changed to day driving? Well, it's for the reasons outlined in the verses that we read from Isaiah 9. For one very simple reason. Because unto us, unto you, unto me, unto us, a son is born. Unto us, a child is given. Not an ordinary child, not an ordinary son. A son who is a Prince of Peace. That means he has the ability as the Prince of Peace to deliver peace and security when we might be in circumstances that might leave us fearful, uncertain, and feeling anything but peaceful. A son who can become to us a wonderful counselor, which means he can speak to us words of support, encouragement, and wisdom on the journey. He can comfort and strengthen us in and through any situation we find ourselves in with his grace and his help. Night driving can be changed to day driving because unto us a son is given who carries government, the verse says, on his shoulders. That means he can take charge. He can take control. He can carry responsibility. Responsibility that might feel too much for us to carry, too weighty for us to carry. Responsibility maybe we were never even designed to carry. He can carry all of that in our lives on his shoulders because he has shoulders broad enough to carry it. Night can be turned to day because a son is given who is also a mighty God, which means he has strength and power, unassailable strength and power, which means he can protect us. He can change situations and circumstances. He can break strongholds down in our lives and remove obstacles on the journey we're on. And finally, this son given to us is also an everlasting Father, the verse says. A Father we can know personally, a Father we can talk to and refer to as our Father in heaven, as the Lord's Prayer says. A Father who has promised to never leave us or forsake us, who's worked a plan to deal with godlessness, self-centeredness and sin in our lives, and in the process has dealt with the threat and the certainty of death that was hanging over us. A Father who has replaced that threat of death with the promise and the certainty of us being walked by him from this life into a life within which we will be in his eternal presence forever. The journey changes from night to day, not because the roads change, but because who is with us changes. Because we no longer journey alone, because we journey as we were always created to journey, accompanied by the Son, accompanied by a mighty God, who is also the Prince of Peace, a wonderful counselor, and an everlasting Father. You know, it's easy to conclude that the Christmas narrative, well, it's just a quaint, cozy story, isn't it? That, you know, it simply adds a sense of nostalgia and warmth into Christmas as an event. And anyway, these words from Isaiah, written 2,700 years ago, were written by a well-meaning, unenlightened, uneducated person who was living with personal desire to see better days. That can be our assessment of words like that and of Christmas. But every single day, not just Christmas Day, every single day, hundreds of thousands of people all over the world have the nature of their journey changed from nighttime driving to daytime driving. And they give credit for that change to having discovered a personal relationship with Jesus, a personal relationship with a mighty God, with someone they discover personally to be a wonderful counselor, an everlasting Father, and a Prince of Peace into their lives. If you go on our TVC Church website, under the tab labelled Stories, you'll find a whole stack of videos and written articles from all sorts of people from a variety of backgrounds telling you about what's changed when they've let Jesus into their lives. We've heard Anne's story in the service today, and here's another one of those stories that you'll find on our website from Mel Walton. And as you listen to this video story from Mel, listen out for the different words and phrases that she uses to describe how the journey was without Jesus and how it now is with Jesus. And see if you can recognize the characteristics of the daytime driving that she's now doing compared with the nighttime driving she was doing. Let's play the video.
Hi, I'm Mel. I'm from Middlesbrough and I currently attend Tees Valley Community Church. Before I knew Jesus, I lived a life full of uncertainty. I had a lot of things happen to me which I couldn't understand why, and I carried that around with me like a burden. I couldn't forgive, I couldn't let go of them situations, and that is what defined me as a person at that time. I didn't realize that I could forgive people and let go and actually live a life that was who I am, not who they made me. Simple little things would be too much. I would find myself hiding away and actually just closing the door to the world and not allowing anybody in. Everything that was on the outside looked like I was happy. It looked like I was living a life full of confidence, and really, this wasn't the truth. This was far, far from it. I always knew about Jesus growing up. My mum used to take us to church every Sunday, and I would know the stories and the background of Jesus, but I never knew him as a person. I never knew him for myself for who he truly was. When I came back to TVCC 3 years ago, I felt like I was home. It was the family taking ground weekend where I first truly experienced Jesus for myself for the first time. I remember the talks and how I connected to the speaker, and every word they said was meant for me. I remember standing at the front and asking God to show me that he was real, and asking that if this was where I was meant to be, he would show me, and he did. The overwhelming love and affection and security that I got in that moment was unexplainable. It was just totally something that was unknown. Jesus has changed my life. He has helped me step past my anxieties and my fears of being inadequate. Jesus inspires me for his acceptance of everybody around. He doesn't care for your background. He doesn't care for where you came from. He cares what is in your heart and who you are as a person. I struggled with words all my life. I can't put them down on paper. I struggle to actually say what I feel. So how Jesus stood up and talked in front of people is a big inspiration to me. He had people that didn't want to hear, people that didn't even want him around, but he still told and stood up and said the truth. And I feel like that Jesus is pushing me and telling me to actually be bold. All the way through lockdown, he's told me to be bold and step forward. And pushing past these has been quite difficult, but knowing that he's with me and guiding me is the one thing that gets me through every single time. I believe Jesus has guided me to serve within the tech team, which I did prior to COVID, and more certainly now. I'm getting more involved with the children's work, helping them in their journey and their step to building a strong relationship with Jesus. I had the privilege of helping with an alpha, which was another thing that was stepping out of my comfort zone. Actually relying on the Holy Spirit to come to me with the words and actually come to the meeting to lead people to Jesus. He's inspired me to see the world differently, to find the goodness and the happiness in every day, to actually reach out to people and show love and kindness and be the person that he was for all of his life. Every day is a new process to moving forward and seeing how that he can help me in every situation that I end up in because of him. Every path that I go down is a journey that leads me to a new understanding and a new level of faith that I didn't have the day before.
Mel's nighttime driving, uncertainty, lack of confidence, fears and anxieties and unforgiveness that defined her. An inability to let go of past events, a desire to hide and a strategy of keeping people out. When she let Jesus in and moved to daytime driving, an overwhelming sense of love she talked about, affection, security and a sense of acceptance that was unexplainable were her words. A Jesus that helped her past her anxieties, fears, feelings of inadequacies and filled her with a boldness and a confidence. A Jesus who guided her where to serve and inspired her to find his goodness and happiness in each and every day and enabled her to show the love and kindness to others that Jesus himself showed every day of his life. The people walking in darkness, Isaiah 9 says, have seen a great light. On those living in deep darkness, a light has dawned. For unto us a child is born. To us a son is given, and the government will be on his shoulders, and he will be called Wonderful Counselor, Mighty God, Everlasting Father, Prince of Peace. Christmas is both a celebration and an opportunity. A celebration of a great light dawning on a land and a people who are living and driving in darkness. And an opportunity to make the switch from nighttime driving to daytime driving.